Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on COVID-19 guidance for early learning and care contractors. This webinar is being presented by the California Department of Education's Early Learning and Care Division and Fiscal and Administrative Services Division. This webinar is being held on September 11th, 2020, and is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. We want to thank you for taking some time to join us for this webinar. So my name is Steve Profiter. I'm the Director of the Early Learning and Care Division at the California Department of Education. For those of you that know me and those of you that I look forward to meeting after we get through this, I'm an optimist. I try to find positive in everything regardless of the circumstances. Admittedly, it's been challenging given what we're experiencing in the pandemic, adding on the fires and the continued work we have in front of us to address racism and social justice issues. But where we are now, in spite of how gloomy it may seem, is better than where we've been before. At the CDE, we work on a model of continuous quality improvement, so we will continue to work towards a better tomorrow that provides equitable opportunities for all people. Today, as we mark the 19th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, many of us can remember where we were on the morning of September 11th, 2001. When we learned about the attacks on our country or saw the first images of the attacks on the World Trade Center. The pain of that day is still with us, and we'll never forget all of the lives tragically lost that day. Fast forwarding to today, and in the midst of a pandemic, fires, and other issues that compound our collective work, we acknowledge all of you that continue to serve children and families in the best way you can. As a field prior to the pandemic and throughout, we continue to struggle with issues around compensation and health and safety. At the CDE, we appreciate everything you are doing in the face of adversity to continue to support children and families, many of whose needs are compounded by their own health and safety issues, supporting their children's distance learning as an example, and other things. At CDE, we continue to work through the many guidance areas, and I'm pretty excited to say that in a few slides, Lupe is going to be covering one of the bigger pieces of guidance that just got released this morning. We are continuing to work on other guidance that we'll be able to release once the governor signs Senate Bill 820. We're working as hard as possible to make sure you all have the guidance that we have the legal authority to release. Sometimes it will come in the form of interim guidance while we wait on authority from legislation to release formal guidance. The team in ELCD working on this guidance comes from programs that operated early learning and care programs. And so with that background, the team working on the guidance, certainly keeping your concerns at the forefront as we contemplate our guidance. Now, before we return to the topics of the webinar, I shared earlier that I'm an optimist, and all of us in ELCD believe in the future of tomorrow and that our best days are in front of us. Such is the nature of caring and educating the future generation. You'll hear in a moment more about the Q&A function in this webinar, but I'd like you to take a moment to think about and then use the Q&A function to share some positive things that you've experienced during this pandemic. For example, I'll share that I appreciate that because I have spent more time at home, I've had the benefit of seeing more of my partner and my two daughters. While we're all faced with different challenges, I want us to remember that despite how today may appear, tomorrow will come and the sun will shine. Now, back to the topic of the webinar. While you all are kind of providing some positive things. As with our previous webinars, we continue to accumulate questions and concerns from many of you through the emergency email address, through stakeholder feedback, and through contact with ELCD staff members, and then the questions and answers from our weekly webinars. We are committed to being as responsive as possible, and the panelists on this webinar are actively monitoring the questions coming in through the Q&A feature. While we try to address as many questions as possible, we won't be able to get to all, but we will do our absolute best. And then speaking again of doing our absolute best, I want to stop here and thank the team that work each week to not just ensure we are prepped with content, but to also make sure that we have answers ready. in addition to working on guidance. It is in no way an easy job, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with this team. Before I close my part, I wanted to briefly mention that Management Bulletin 20-16 regarding continued funding applications for next fiscal year was sent by email to subscribers of our distribution list yesterday on September 10th. We will not be going deep into that bulletin today, as it will be discussed in a future webinar. However, we do have several individuals on the webinar who will be able to address any immediate questions you may have about it. And then with that, I will turn it over to the ELCD's Associate Director, Erica Otiono, for some additional remarks.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning and happy Friday. Erica Otiono, Associate Director. I want to echo what Steve has said. I want to say thank you again to the CDE team and to all of you for giving us a few minutes of your valuable time. We hope that the information you get here today will help you in one aspect or the other, on the work that you do with families, children, providers, and your staff. Today, Roseanne Pitts, Administrator in ELCD, will provide the program implementation updates that I had provided in prior sessions. Thank you again. With that, I will turn it over to Virginia Early.
Hi, everyone. My name is Virginia Early. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the administrator of our policy office in the Early Learning and Care Division. And just thank you so much for being here on our webinar and for all the work that you do and for your engagement in the policy process. We definitely couldn't do any of this without you. So in a couple slides from now, both myself and Guadalupe Romo Zendejas will talk through some of the ongoing guidance work that we're working on and some of our recent pieces. Stephen already mentioned two of our guidance pieces already. Management Bulletin 2017 for distance learning got posted this morning. So we'll go a little bit deeper into some of our ongoing guidance work. We won't be doing a robust fiscal update today, but we have the fiscal team available on the back end, working in the Q&A chat box to answer questions. And of course, if there are many fiscal questions, they can speak up at the end to address those. We did, however, want to address really quickly the stipends, which are for voucher providers, since we touched on that this week, to just kind of let you know where those are at. We want to thank everybody who gave us data that helped us helping us with determining the allocations, and wanted to just share that we're working very closely with the California Department of Social Services, or CDSS, to determine how to implement the stipends and get the money to providers. We know that stage 1 is implemented very differently from our programs, and so we're working through how that implementation will work together with CDSS. And as we work, what we're working on here is weighing quickly getting out the funds to providers against making sure the stipends are issued in a streamlined way across both CalWORK Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, and our CAP and CMAP contractors. And now I'll turn it over to Alana, who is our moderator.
Good morning, everyone. As Virginia said, my name is Alana Andrade, and I'm a child development consultant in the policy office here at ELCD. I will be moderating this webinar. Helping to answer some questions today are from the Program Quality Implementation Office. We have Cassandra Lewis, Mai Zhang, Richard Miller, Jir Zhang, Christina Toney, and from the Child Development, Nutrition, and Fiscal Services, CDNFS, we have Andrea Johnson, Corey Kahn, and from FASD, the Fiscal Administration Houston Office, we have Alan Lynch. And from the Child Development Management Information System, CDMIS team, we have Rob Hom and Carly Nodahara. And last but not least, from the Funding Application Unit, we also have Shane Dirajoni, Mira Moore, and Stephen Chu. So thank you for continuing to mute your microphone. As Stephen said earlier, our team is committed to being as responsive as possible, and we will try to address as many questions as we can. We will not be able to get to them all, but we will do our absolute best. In addition, to see which of your questions have already been answered, please visit our ELCD's Frequently Asked Questions webpage. And before we move on to the next slide, I'd like to also just say, please continue to write in and send your questions using our Q&A feature. And just a quick reminder, it is very helpful to us to know the context of the question, meaning which contract your question is referring to. And many of you are already doing this, and it just makes it a lot easier for us to answer your question. At the end of the presentation, we will answer some of the questions aloud. And if we are unable to provide answers to your question before the end of the hour, all questions in the Q&A will still be captured. A few suggestions from you during this webinar is to share the text from our Q&A box. Thank you very much for the suggestion. And we're working with our Technology Service Division to see if and how that can be done. Until then, we're working behind the scenes to get the FAQ page updated in a very timely manner. And just a correction, Alan Lynch, who I had stated was in our FASD office, is in our CDNFS office. Thank you, Alan. And if there are any other questions that aren't answered during the hour, again, please submit them to our emergency inbox at elcdemergency@cde.ca.gov. And, to focus ourselves on why we're here, all the children that you see during this webinar are from our early learning and care programs. The ones on this slide are from our Hayward Unified School District office. Next slide, please, Eric. Thank you. So to see which of your questions have already been answered, as I stated before, to please visit our ELCD FAQ webpage at https://www.cde.ca.gov/sp/re/COVID-19 ELCD FAQ.asp. For those who are visually able, there is a screen share of our ELCD's COVID-19 resource page. Directly under that title header is the link for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 FAQs for the ELCD programs. Under that is the one for the previous fiscal years. We did this so for our contractors have for audit purposes for their following year. Next slide, please. Thank you. And once again, for those who are visually able, this is what you would see if you were on our FAQs 2020-21 FAQ page. This is where we're uploading questions and answers from the webinar as quickly as possible, along with questions and responses that our FAQ process team has verified within our department. So the ones that you're still sending in through our ELCD emergency inbox. Thank you for this attention. And now I'd like to bring back Stephen to go over our agenda today.
Thank you, Alana, and thank you everybody for sharing your positive stories and examples from the pandemic. It's so refreshing to see and hear about the good things going on. So for an overview of our work, we had been working with the legislature and administration, as we've shared previously, about providing technical assistance to them as they crafted the budget, and then elevating issues that we had heard from all of you since the budget had been signed at the end of June. So for an update on kind of where we are, we have been working on developing guidance will continue to be released. As we mentioned in last week's webinar, the revised August budget trailer bill went into print and the legislature passed it on Monday, August 31st. It is currently with the governor. So we're still waiting for the governor to sign it. And while he technically has until the end of September, we are hopeful that it will not take that long, and we'll have something here signed, but well before that. But in the meanwhile, we continue to work to ensure that we can release permanent guidance to implement the provisions of the trailer bill as soon as it's signed. So today we're going to provide you an update of that ongoing CDE guidance work, both in terms of not just what's new, but kind of what's ahead, what's been released. We'll also be covering updates from our Program Quality Implementation Office. And then finally, at the end, we will take questions as we have in previous webinars. We'll start with some questions that have come into our ELCD emergency email box. As I mentioned before, we won't be able to get through everything, but we will do our absolute best to address as much as we can. You may also use, as Alana mentioned, the Q&A function in Zoom to put your questions in. Again, we're just going to do our absolute best to answer as many questions as possible. And so whatever questions we don't get to, we will take back to address in FAQs on our website. And I will now turn it over to Lupe, who will discuss some of the ongoing guidance work we're working on.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. So the California Department of Education has received many questions regarding using alternate models for delivering in-person and distance learning. I'm going to go over some of the ground rules on the guidance on this. The Distance Learning Management Bulletin, MB 2017, was released this morning. It provides requirements for distance learning and the process for submitting distance learning plans to the CDE. Additionally, the Management Bulletin regarding reopening and reimbursement requirements for direct service programs will be released upon the Governor's approval of SB 820. These guidance documents will address the requirements for distance learning and will address priority for in-person services when not all enrolled families can be served due to a public health order or directive that limits capacity. Senate Bill 820 includes a provision that sets requirements giving priority to families that work outside the home. Distance learning and priority for service provisions were partly in response to the various state and local public health directives limiting capacity for early learning programs. The California Department of Public Health released updated guidance about cohorts on September 4th that limit cohorts to no more than 16 total people, giving more flexibility on the number of adults that can be within a cohort and allows supervising adults who serve children 5 years and younger to interact with up to 2 different cohorts of children. Because full-day programs must serve the needs of families and SB 820 sets forth priorities for serving currently enrolled families in person, flexibilities for providing distance learning is limited. Since part-day California state preschool programs do not include a need component, agencies may have more flexibility on developing alternate models, such as enrolling for 3 times a week and 2 times a week, and provide distance learning for the off days to allow more children to have an in-person experience while meeting the Department of Health, Public Health orders, cohort order requirements. Agencies that are providing alternate models for part-day California state preschools must address these within the distance learning plan. 1, how the alternate model will work, how the alternate model meets the developmental, cultural, and linguistic needs of children in the program, and the reason for delivering services using this alternate model. So that concludes the presentation on this. Again, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A function. And now on to Virginia, who will discuss additional ongoing CDE guidance.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Lupe. So in terms of our ongoing guidance, CDE guidance part 2, we know that many of you are eagerly awaiting information on family fees. As a reminder, Senate Bill 820 has several pieces of language related to family fees in it. We sort of sent out an email summarizing those a bit ago. So if you want to go hunt through your emails to give yourself a reminder of what's coming when the governor signs that bill, that's there. We mentioned last week and for the weeks before that we were working on an email that will give some interim directives to the field in advance of SB 820 being signed. That email is in the final stages of CDE internal review. Thank you very much for your patience as we work through some really challenging issues with this guidance. So on this webinar, I know many of you are eager for new content. We wanted to give you a preview of what that email will say for our guidance on family fee waivers for July and August 2020. So we sent out an email on July 28th that family fees for all families were waived for July and August. And that email said something to the effect of CDE will be releasing a management bulletin that will give more directives about how to implement any refunds for any fees that were already paid. At this point, because of timing issues with Senate Bill 820, we would like to direct you to, if you have not refunded family fees that were paid for July and August, please take our words here as guidance to issue a refund or a credit for future services to families that have paid fees for July and or August 2020. And please do this based on your internal policy for refunds and credits of those fees. For families, fees that have already been refunded or credited for future services, contractors need to maintain documentation for review. There's no need to issue an additional notice of action at this time. If the contractor is an AP contractor and has not already done so, contractors must share with providers the notice of action or whatever other form of communication that was provided to the family, showing that the family fees have been refunded or credited. For situations where family fees are not already refunded or credited, we're asking contractors to document the waived family fees for July and August and indicate what action was taken to refund family fees or credit toward future services. And just a reminder here, there's a new law that passed that basically states that information about family fees, the contractors are required to notify the providers of the changes on the same day that the notice or information is issued to the family. So our email is going to set a deadline for processing any refunds or credits of family fees for July and August, and that deadline is going to be October 31st, 2020. So contractors who can't meet this deadline need to contact their ELCD Program Quality Implementation Office Regional Consultant. So that's a bit of a preview of what our email will say. As I said, it's in the final stages of review, but we really want to just say verbally to all of you here, please, if you haven't refunded the family fees, please do so, based on what I said. And that email will be coming out shortly, which will basically put in writing everything that I just said. In terms of family fee waivers for September 2020 through June 2020, I just want to sort of remind folks what's in the SB 820 here, which says that family fees are waived for families that are that are not receiving in-person care, or if they're staying at home either for sheltering in place or for receiving distance learning. That one is a lot more complicated, and we're not going to give you a preview of our guidance on that one, but as I mentioned, our email with that interim guidance is in the final stages of CDE internal review. One thing I just want to point out there is that once the governor signs SB 820, we will be following up the guidance with a management bulletin, which will take our email guidance and put it in the management bulletin form, and we'll strip out things like once the governor signs, and language around that. So I know there are a lot of questions that are coming in the chat about family fees. And so a good rule of thumb for September is if the family is not receiving distance learning or sheltering in place, they pay fees like normal, because the family fee waiver only applies to families where they're sheltering in place due to COVID or distance learning. So with that, I'll turn over to Roseanne, who will discuss our program quality implementation update.
Hello, I am Roseanne Pitts, and I'm an administrator with the Early Learning and Care Division. I am happy to be providing the update today for the Program Quality Implementation Office. Programs have been asked to provide data to ELCD requesting your current status. Thank you so much to those of you who have already responded. We greatly appreciate the immediate responses that have been provided to our field consultants. We are very happy to be knowing what you're doing out there in the field right now, and we appreciate your continued efforts. If you haven't submitted the data yet, today is the due date, and we would appreciate your immediate response on that so we have the data in front of us. This data that you are providing will inform the ELCD staff working on training and technical assistance to provide even more guidance to you during these challenging times. So knowing how many centers are open, how many are trying to reopen, and those of you that are closed doing distance learning, all that information is being gathered to help provide more information about how we're doing services and to help CDE really understand the very many different approaches that agencies are taking. I have been just amazed at some of the really innovative ways that programs are choosing to do services, whether it be in person or through distance learning. So we do at CDE, we greatly appreciate your input and the help that you're providing to all of us. Thank you so much. And I will send it back over to Alana.
Excellent. Thank you, Roseanne. So we've definitely been getting a lot of questions. I would first like us to address some of the questions regarding MB 2017 that was just released. So the first is that many of you noticed, as we also did notice, that the expiration date was today. And this MB, rest assured, this MB is not expired today. And so we have fixed that. And so it'll be for the rest of the fiscal year. And I would like to ask Lupe to come back and to speak on the slide that she previously spoke on, the distance learning module slide. A lot of folks just, it was, I think, new information and they're just a little bit more curious. So if I can first ask Lupe that you speak to us about, within the distance learning plan, what are the 3 things that the programs need to be thinking of?
The distance learning plan is actually more encompassing. It basically wants to know that programs are still required to adhere to the program quality requirements in Title V. So the survey that will be going out, or that has been released with the management bulletin, just speaks to how the plan, your plan or the agency's plan to meet those requirements, such as parent engagement and how are you going to be serving families, meet their linguistic needs and special eds. And so those are the types of questions. And it's basically, like I said, it's how are you in distance learning going to adhere to those program quality requirements.
Excellent, thank you. And Lupe, can you also address the template? There are definitely, I know that this webinar is not just about the distance learning, but folks have been asking a lot about the template, saying that they would prefer it in a Word doc, or if there's another way that they're supposed to be doing it. Can you speak a little bit about what the guidance will be? Obviously, with the MB just released, so. So
yeah, we did the survey format for ease of collecting the information, and but I understand that, yeah, sometimes it doesn't allow you to see the whole document. So we will work with our team to see how we can post that Word document. But it will need to be submitted through the SNAP survey form.
Excellent. Okay, so we've gotten some other questions about family fees. So Virginia, can I ask you to come back? One specific is, can you please verify that families who are participating in distance learning will not be charged a family fee?
Yes, I can verify that.
And they will be waived for distance learning and family sheltering in place once Senate Bill 820 is signed by the governor, and then. Yeah,
but Senate Bill 820 is also effective, so it is effective September 1st. So it's a little dicey because it's not signed yet, but it's the language in it says starting in September. So I think once it's signed, the fees are waived for September for family sheltering in place. And we are expecting the governor to sign SB 820. So we're just kind of in a slightly awkward spot while we wait for it to be signed, but we are expecting that to happen.
Excellent. Thank you, Virginia.
It's just the governor gets so many bills that come to his desk that it's the fact that it hasn't been signed yet nobody should read anything into that. It's just, he has a lot of bills to sign.
Awesome. Thank you, Virginia, for that clarification. So there was also a few questions that came in about those contractors who hold an LEA and who are on LEA, and there were some requirements for public hearing. Virginia, can I ask you to speak to that one? So the question is, SB 820 requires LEA contractors that are closed for in-person learning and care services to discuss their plan for safely reopening at a public hearing. What are those requirements for the public hearing that LEAs have to hold?
So I think I'm actually going to turn this over to Lupe, but I mean, it's basically what it sounds like, have a public hearing where this is discussed. Lupe, is there anything you want to add?
So yeah, it's a public hearing. So as a public agency, there are requirements on what constitute a public hearing. So whether you're following the Brown Act or the Bagley-King Act, you need to abide by those. So yeah, but as long as you have a public hearing that addresses early learning and care, that should suffice.
So, and just one thing to add on to what Lupe just said, which is we've been getting a lot of questions about LEAs having public hearings to discuss their TK-12 reopening plans. And it would be allowable for the LEA to add in early learning as an agenda item or a piece of that discussion. It does need to be discussed as its own topic, but it could be part of the same hearing. There's no need to have a separate hearing just for that.
Thank you for the clarification. So Lupe, can I also ask, one of the questions we've received is, who do we submit our written plan approved by the LEA school board?
I'll have to get back. I don't believe they have to be submitted. You just have to have them on file. But
yeah, I can take that one, Lupe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Lupe
that's okay.
and I work together so closely, so sometimes it's hard for Alana to know. So you won't need to submit any plan for reopening the CDE, but it should be on file for future requests. And we're working on guidance where we'll ask our contractors to submit a verification that they have such a plan to their ELCD regional consultant. And thanks, Alana, for navigating which question goes to which person so gracefully.
I am aiming to. We are also getting some questions about DRDP guidance and specifically which views would be utilized. So perhaps I'll just open up to the panel. My assumption is that it might be Roseanne who can speak to this.
Yes, thank you. Erica is also on. We are continue to work to get approved a modified schedule for DRDPs. We're calling it a modified essential view. I think Erica explained last week that that will be 16 measures for preschool and 13 measures for infant toddlers. And we are really close to getting that approved. Hopefully more information may be available next week.
Thank you, Roseanne. That's accurate.
So with Erica and Roseanne, we just got a couple of questions also asking about, should we start doing the DRDPs? When should we be doing the DRDPs? Is there some guidance that you can hand off to our participants on that?
This is Erica Otiona. Yes, absolutely. If you can, absolutely. The 16 measures is just the minimum. You can do the comprehensive if you can, so absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and ask our friend Corey to come speak in, as there have been a lot of questions that have been answered about attendance and fiscal reporting for CSPP and CCTR contracts. And so Corey, if you can come back in and ask and speak a little bit more.
Yeah, so I've answered a few questions through the Q&A function, and there are various questions just about reporting this fiscal year for their CCTR and CSPP contract. I do want to say that beginning fiscal year 2021, we are now collecting CCTR, CSPP, and CMIG fiscal and attendance reports electronically. And specifically, it is through our CPARIS website. So that's where that was rolled out maybe a few years ago, where agencies could look up their payment. But there has been an addition to that website, and now we are collecting fiscal and attendance report information through that website for the general child care, preschool program, and migrant program right now at this time. So you will not see a 2021 hard copy PDF report posted to our website for those. That was specifically the CDNFS 8501 or the CDNFS 9500. So those will not be PDF'd on our website. They will now be collected through CPARIS. So there is a user manual on our website that anyone can access, and it goes through what requirements you need to do in order to enter in data. But I would suggest that agencies review that user manual first, and then if they have any additional questions, they can contact their fiscal analyst, or I believe we have a CPARIS support inbox, and that is that email is actually within the user manual as well.
Excellent, thank you, Corey. I know that we have some colleagues from CDMIS on the line as well. There's some questions regarding how to complete the first quarter report. I think, Corey, you could also answer this too. So for centers on LEA grounds, at this time, there's no attendance being taken as children are not physically attending. So how should they report that on their 8501 form?
So this was discussed in previous webinars, but reporting attendance is, we only want you to report attendance on the fiscal and attendance report based on anyone who is expected to receive in-person care. And there's also going to be a management bulletin that has been drafted. We've gone over some of the differences in how to report enrollment as well for these children and in previous webinars, but this management bulletin will specifically outline everything that we've gone over in the last couple webinars.
Okay. There's also still a lot of questions that we're getting under MB 2017. As also, it's very new information, so understandably, what an exciting opportunity that you get to read a management bulletin and then have those who have written it right there with you. So there's definitely some questions about a timing issue, if it's going to be weekly or not. Can I ask Lupe to speak, or perhaps Erica to speak on that?
I'm not understanding. Is what going to be weekly?
Let me see if I can pull up one of the spaces. Oh, there's so many questions, it's hard to scroll back. It's about the time frames.
Well, and I guess I'm not understanding can we go back and look at that question and respond to it? I'm not sure what timeframes we're talking about, because the plan is just a general plan for how you're going to provide distance learning.
Okay. We'll put a pause on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and we've also, I'll pivot a little bit. So we've gotten some questions about how earlier this week, the California Department of Public Health re-released their updated guidance on cohorts. And I think that a lot of the questions were just asking about verification on what we've normally said about the cohorts and how there's a difference of a shift in the cohorts.
So yeah, I can respond to that. So yes, we did in the presentation say that it's a group size, that there couldn't be more than 16 in a group. That included the 2 adults. So yes, it is 14 children and 2 adults. So the total group is 16.
So this is Stephen. I just want to clarify that the updated guidance gives flexibility around the number of staff. So it can actually, you can have up to 3 adults. Still no more than,
Correct.
no larger cohort than 16, but you can have up to 3 adults, because we know that there were some issues, some questions that we'd been receiving about how do you handle breaks, lunches, things like that. And then there's an additional, and I'm sorry, Lupe, if you were going to address this, about the provision of an adult being in multiple cohorts if the age of children in the cohort is 5 and under.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Let's see, another pivot. I'm going to ask a member from our CDMIS team to come and speak a little bit about reporting. There's still some questions about how to report when it's the child is in attendance or not in attendance. And I know that this is all a lot of information, and it's probably just going to be information that's repeated, but very useful information.
Yeah, good morning. This is Rob Hom within the Child Development Management Information System, or CDMIS office. Hope you're doing well. Just want to provide a quick refresh in terms of how your agency should be reporting on the 801A report each month in the case that your agency is closed due to COVID-19. So in the case that your agency's sites are closed due to COVID-19, but distance learning services are being provided, we'll ask that you report the enrolled families on the 801A report. And as I mentioned in a previous webinar, for purposes of defining an enrolled family on the 801A report, we'll define an enrolled family as a family that was both enrolled and would have attended the program if the site was not closed due to COVID-19. So again, report the enrolled families on the 801A report if your agency's sites are closed due to COVID-19 and distance learning services are being provided. If in-person services are being provided to families at the agency's physical childcare sites, we'll ask that you do not change any of your 801A reporting practices and continue to report as you have been. So hopefully that helps to clear anything up, but feel free to send emails to the CDMIS inbox, and we'll be happy to answer those questions then. And we'll be here until the end of the webinar as well, answering any questions through the question and answer chat portal.
Excellent. We really appreciate you being here, Rob. Okay, so I'm Lupe. I'm going to ask you to come back. I think I found one of the questions. So it was regarding on the management bulletin that was just released on page 4, the number 5 section addresses maximum time frames. And the question was, is this a weekly requirement?
Oh, you mean the screen times are I believe, is Crystal on? Crystal, are you on the call? I believe it's a
I am.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a daily, you cannot, the screen time is limited per day.
Yeah, and for clarification, I believe the question was, are we requiring them to do these activities on a daily or a weekly basis, and is the screen that for that maximum screen time? We did not set a requirement for whether the contractor has to do this daily or weekly, so as to allow for flexibility for the contractors around what is working best for their children and families. The only requirement in regards to the amount of times is that they contact parents or families a minimum of once a week to check in with them.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Crystal. Crystal is a child development consultant in the PQI who is excellent, and we're very lucky that she's here on the webinar today. Okay, so there's also other questions about contracts. I know that we're running low on time, so I'm going to ask Andrea to speak to about how direct service contractors, does attendance and enrollment affect the ability of the contractor to earn their contract?
It does not. So in 2021 for direct service contracts, the attendance, you are still required to report attendance and enrollment per Title V. However, that is not taken into consideration when determining your contract earnings or your payments.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrea. And also, I'm now seeing our Q&A box is getting a little full with questions about reporting. Now, there is 2 different types of reporting. We've got CDMIS, as Rob was answering, and we've got CDNFS. Can I ask Corey to come back and just sort of explain what the CDNFS report forms might look like and how that's different than CDMIS?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's different just because I've never actually been a user of CDMIS. I just want to make sure that I see a lot of questions just generically about reporting, and even some people saying, well, now I'm confused, or I don't know how to report this or that. And I just wanted to make sure that people are understanding that what Robert has come up and said about CDMIS reporting is very specific to CDMIS. And then what I have said about, reporting attendance based on when the child is expected to be in the classroom, that is very specific to fiscal and attendance reports. So to not get those two things confused, like I said, we will have the reporting scenarios for both attendance, enrollment, and operation included on an upcoming management bulletin. So that will be in writing. You'll see how to report the differences and when to report days of enrollment versus days of attendance. So that should be very clear once that gets released. But I just, for purposes of just this webinar, I just want to make sure that everyone is not getting those two types of reports confused, because some of the data collected is very similar.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Okay, let's see if there's a few more. There's a lot more specific questions about the MB 2017, and I would just also encourage you to reach out to your assigned PQI regional consultant to answer questions as well. I think they're also just ready to be working with you. And again, what a lucky spot for you all to be in, that you got to speak to those who are helping to write it right after it was read. So we have about 6 minutes left. I'm going to start reading about our resource sections while you're still getting in some questions, and then we'll see if there's any last minute ones that we can answer. So all of our webinar slides, MBs, and FAQs can be found on the ELCD COVID-19 Guidance webpage, which I discussed at the beginning. That's found at https://www.cde.sp/SP/re/ELCD COVID-19.asp. And yes, there were a lot of comments about not seeing the slide deck on there. We are working with our technology service division to get it up as soon as possible. I will also just caution that since we're all moving remote, I think that they're probably working very hard to get a lot of things put on there. So rest assured that we are working to get the slide decks and any recordings that we'll be able to get on there. And again, any things that have been answered from the Q&A will show up on our FAQ page. You may also submit any additional questions to our ELCD emergency inbox at elcdemergency.cde.ca.gov. And to contact your assigned PQI office regional consultant, a list of those consultants can be found at ELCD Consultant Regional Assignments webpage at https://www.cde.ca.gov/sp/cd/assignments/.asp, or you can phone at 916-322-6233. Okay, so a lot of the questions are still about the distance learning, so I would encourage you to reach out to your regional consultant. And there are still also a few questions regarding the CDMIS reporting form and whatnot. So I also would ask you to reach out to CDMIS. Their email address is, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's just cdmis@cde.ca.gov.
You are correct, Alana. Good job.
Excellent, excellent. I know how to read off things. Okay. And there's still a lot of questions surrounding the DRDP, which is forthcoming guidance. So unless there's anything that our panelists would like to answer, I'm not seeing anything specific. I will continue to scroll. Your questions and answers are coming in very rapidly. Thank you, Mai. I see that she put in the CDMIS team's email there. Can I ask that Lupe or Erica speak about when the DRDP guidance will be, when is the anticipated DRDP guidance to be released?
This is Erica. Actually, we're thinking of a listserv. We haven't put a date to it. We're still working with West Ed. We have a meeting this upcoming week to finalize. Then we'll put that information to the field. Yeah. And we're hoping maybe not just the listserv, we may, depending on feedback we get from the field, we may want to do a webinar. So stay tuned.
Excellent, thank you. And also, I have a direction to let you all know to please reach out to your assigned consultant if you're looking for a copy of the survey questions attached to MB 2017. Okay, again, there is just a lot of questions about the DRDP, and as Erica said, we're very much about to be sending it when we can and when it's ready. Okay. So I think at this time, I'm going to ask Stephen and Erica to come back on and help us close out for this week.
Thank you. I think I'll look for Erica to kind of start out our closing.
Okay. I just want to thank you all for your participation, and especially to some parents and providers that I see on the list. You are a very important piece of this whole discussion. So thank you for your participation. For contractors, for parents, for providers, if you have any specific questions, please reach out to your regional consultant, to the administrators, or to me. Take care and talk to you next week.
Thank you, Erica. And on behalf of the team at CDE, you are continuously working to give you the best information, even when information seems like it's rapidly changing. We thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this morning's webinar, and we hope you'll join us for the next one. As you move into the remainder of your Friday, please take a deep breath and know that you are appreciated. Take care, be safe, and be kind.